Hey, how are you?
Doing well, how are you?
Good. Thanks for asking. So I know you like music a lot. Can you just tell me a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so my name is Khepesh Imhotep. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, currently 23 years old, and I play classical flute. I started playing flute in the 4th grade, and how I got my start was it was a very actually interesting story. So my teacher, when they called us down for a pick your instrument thing,
Oh, that was part of your school.
yeah,
I see.
public school, yeah. So I started flute in the public school system. Never had lessons, never beforehand. And my teacher, she brought us down for pick your instrument day, and I think everybody had chosen all the other instruments, and nobody had chosen flute.
Wow.
And so, what she did for me was she only brought out the flute head joint, and she said, "This is a flute." So she tricked me. And so I was thinking, oh, well, if this is the only thing that I have to play, then when I get older, I'll be a pro. And so she was like, great. And then she put the flute head joint back in the flute case and just handed it to me. And so when I went home, when I was picked up from my parents picked me up from elementary school, they said, oh, what instrument did you play? I said, the flute. I was like, oh, did they give you one? I said, yes. They were like, pull it out. And when I pulled it out, I noticed that there were 2 other pieces in there. And I was just like, oh, I didn't know this.
You got tricked?
But I started playing the flute, and I've loved it ever since.
That's so cool. I didn't actually think that there'd be anyone that would follow through on like something they do in school. Well, I guess right now do you currently study in like a music school or?
Yeah. So I did my undergraduate in music performance on classical flute at Shenandoah Conservatory. And then right now I'm doing my master's in performing arts leadership and management. So arts management, governing arts organizations, learning how to manage those, and just learning about that behind the scenes music.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I think I do like it. The thing that I've always held is understanding the behind the scenes and in front of, like, on stage and behind stage, because having a full, well-rounded understanding of how everything comes together is really important. Because if you're performing and then you understand that the arts organization is not doing well, or you can predict something in the future, that saves you, time in the future and opportunities. Being able to predict when something's going to happen just by analyzing an organization or something is a very good thing to have. And also just having the skills and the understanding of the business side of music is very important, because a lot of people don't understand that, and they can get taken advantage of. And that's something that's very important to me.
Is there something that just keeps you going with music, like your love for it, or is there an inspiration you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that inspired me to do flute was my grandmother. My grandmother, when I was playing the flute, I would come home every day in elementary school, and she would call me and she would say, Khepesh, let's get on Skype and you can play your flute. And she really encouraged me to learn. And then what happened with me was, the point of when I was like, okay, I'm going to take this serious, was when I was in the 9th grade, and I went to a master class by a black flutist. His name is Damari McGill, and he's principal flute of the Seattle Symphony currently right now. And I saw him play and give a master class, and that was the first time I had ever seen someone of my skin color play flute at a high level like that in an orchestral classical setting. And because I had never seen that before, so I thought that it wasn't really possible. And seeing him, an example like that, really was like, oh, I can do this. And from that point on,
just sort of like focused in.
Yeah. He really inspired me. And I met him, and he actually gave me a little master class.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was really great.
That's nice. So on that vein, master classes and coaching, do you think that having lessons, coaching a teacher, do you think that it's important to becoming a better musician?
I think it is. I think having the right teacher is very important, because when you're learning on your own, like for example with me, I started playing flute in the 4th grade, but I didn't take lessons until I was in the end of my 9th grade in high school. And so a lot of times what can happen is you can develop a lot of bad habits. And so what a coach does is, if you're trying to do, like for classical, for example, classical or music, a coach will understand the mistakes that you can make and will not let you do those. So that way, the time that you do spend, it's more effective.
Yeah.
And also, sometimes an older coach has a lot more maturity than someone who's playing at a young age. And so if a young person hasn't experienced love yet, a coach might be able to explain it in a way so that way they can relate it to something that you've gone through as a kid, so that way you can get that emotion to the audience.
Yeah.
And I also think coaches are just very important because not only do they make, depending on the coach that you have, some teachers are, they can be very terrifying, but some coaches can be very supportive, and they not only develop you as a musician but as a human being, developing discipline, developing drive, motivation, determination. All these things are very important, and the right coach can really take somebody from just an average player to an exceptional player.
Yeah, definitely. So let's say that someone doesn't, because classical music, it can be very expensive resources, the instrument, all this music, equipment, everything like that. Like some people might not have necessary means to get access to those resources. So do you have any recommendations for those people who can't get access to those to get better, to improve?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that we have now is the internet.
Yeah.
The internet is such a big thing. Going on YouTube, looking up different master classes for whatever specific instrument you're playing on. I think that the internet is probably the best thing that somebody that doesn't have access to these expensive things can have. Because even me, like when I wasn't taking lessons, I was looking up videos of the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra and seeing how they play, just to get an idea of like, oh, this is how they do it. And I think somebody doesn't have access to that, that's okay, because I think you have to work with what you have. Even if that means playing out on street performing, maybe. It's about getting the experience of performing, so that way when you do have access and opportunities, you already have some type of experience.
More familiar to you.
Yeah, because everything comes together. I didn't have access. I didn't start taking lessons until I was in the end of my 9th grade year. But up until then, I was out on the street performing with my parents, and they would allow me to street perform in venue, and I would look up. I would just listen to a lot of recordings. I think that the best thing that somebody that doesn't have access to that is to look up a lot of recordings, a lot of different recordings. Go on Spotify, maybe do a Spotify radio, just to get the music in your ear. There are a lot of apps. If you want to learn music theory, there are a lot of music theory apps on the Play Store or Apple Store. Ear training, there's a lot of apps that can teach you that. I find that actually some of the apps teach better than some classes that I've taken in college, because they teach you one method, and if you have that skill set, from there you'll be able to build on top of more. And in the master classes that you watch, you'll be able to understand it more. There's a lot of music history. There's a lot of great resources out there that are available to the public that anybody can access. It's just about knowing where to look, look up music theory, and a lot of great YouTube channels. The internet, that's the best thing that I would say is somebody doesn't have access to that, go on the internet and look up, because I'm pretty sure there's a video or article
somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. So, hope you have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.